Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to simply calmly take a look at what is to be seen in this week in the stock market. All right, so we're going to take a look at the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100, the Russell 2000, and the dollar. Going to keep it nice and simple. All right, so without further ado, let's get started with the video. First of all, this is forexfactory.com. Very simply, this is the news for this week. All right, so we have news coming out at 10 a.m. on Tuesday. We have Fed Powell speaking again on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. And we have GDP numbers coming out pre-market on Thursday. And then we have core PCE numbers coming out pre-market on Friday. And we know that anything that happens during the market hours, we do not like to hold positions. So for example, CB consumer confidence, we're not going to be holding on to any options contracts at 10 a.m. because at that point, the market can jump in either direction. It's basically always a gamble. All right. So there's that. Nothing too crazy this week. There's no Fed minutes or anything like that, thankfully. So we're going to have to see how Fed Powell's speech at 9:30 on Wednesday affects the market. All right. So next, let's take a look at the overall market. And what first I want to do is take a look at the dollar, because the dollar is a good gauge on how much weakness there is in the overall market. All right. So let's take a look. All right, so we know that the dollar has an inverse relationship to the market. So if the dollar is doing well, that means that the stock market should generally be doing weak, and it's not going to be doing well. So we see that the dollar bounced off of support. It crossed on the MACD here, which is a bullish crossover. And when the dollar is strong, once again, that means that the stock market should be falling, right? So we held this support. We bounced very dramatically, obviously, for 2 days. And now this is the first day that we crossed above. So generally when we cross above on the MACD here, for 2 days, it's at least bullish or neutral to the upside. So tomorrow I'm also expecting it to be neutral to bullish, and at least come to this 103.20 level, and basically retest Friday's highs, and then we should. What would be the best case scenario is if we come and retest this 20 exponential moving average on the dollar. So the level that I was saying that we needed to close above on Thursday, I was saying that we needed to close above the 102.80 level on the dollar for a continued move up. That's exactly what ended up happening. So it's a good sign. It's showing that the dollar has more oomph to the upside. Now we just basically need to see what ends up happening. All right, so the dollar clearly should be more bullish heading into Monday. All right, and if the dollar is bullish on Monday, the overall market should be weak. Okay, so I'm expecting bullish to neutral on Monday on the dollar, which means that it should be bearish to neutral on the overall market, according to the dollar. Okay. By the way, remember a few weeks ago when I said to go long Adobe because it would be very profitable in terms of with the AI stuff? From the bottoms here, it's up over 50%. From here, from this little pullback here, it's up over 40%. That's neither here nor there though. All right, anyway, right, let's just take a look at the SPY. So it's very simply, what are the next steps for the market? And let me just quickly give you guys like an understanding of what I think is going to end up happening. All right, so this candle here from Thursday, right, when we painted a bullish candle, obviously what would have been the most bearish situation is if we got a bounce and then we continued to bounce back up to these levels of resistance over here. And then from here, if we ended up falling even lower, that would have given the biggest opportunity for a move down, because it allowed people to re-short on a pop to the upside. What instead ended up happening was we made a green candle here on Thursday, and then Friday, we ended up falling even lower. That, in my opinion, dropped the potential downside by a lot, because we didn't get another solid re-entry, and you know, it's not as comfortable as a re-entry basically, because if you're a bear, right, you want to enter at levels of resistance at a higher price so that you get more risk reward profit, right? Not many people re-entered into shorts over here at 436. More people were going long because they wanted a bounce to the upside, right? So in my opinion, because we end up falling lower Friday the next day afterward, it drastically dropped the downside potential, right? So I'm not saying that all the downside potential is gone automatically, right? But I just want you to understand, in my opinion, that's what ended up happening. So now, with this setup, this is a setup that you would take where in the short term, you're expecting a massive drop. So this is a really, really weak setup where you would take lotto puts, essentially, okay? But again, you do not want to go short into weakness, no matter what. For a smart position, right? A non-lotto position, you want to short at levels of resistance on pops upward. You don't want to short into a hole. You don't want to short after weakness has already been prevalent. So with that being said, really, you would wait for a retest to 436 or above, get things to look really, really bullish, and then you would short from here, in my opinion. But regardless, the main thing now is basically just what the levels are going to end up being, right, to the downside. So we obviously have support at 433, then we have support at 432, and then 430. As we get closer to those levels of support to the downside, I am going to be more bullish, okay? And I'm not going to be leaning as short. I would rather be short. It's basically a range between 436 to 430. Closer to 436, you're bearish. Closer to 430, you're bullish. And to keep it very simple, really, that's that. Heading into the end of the week, heading into the end of this week, so I mean, now it's okay. So this is obviously a falling wedge, right? We could end up bouncing off of this, right? So we could break out. We could come back, retest the wedge line, then continue up, right? But then it becomes down here. Once again, do you want to be going short, or would you rather be going long? Especially because we ended up falling lower on Friday. It's gonna be interesting. But regardless, I don't want to be short down here. I would rather miss the trade and short up here instead with a stop loss. And another reason why I'm not exceedingly short currently, right, is because we're long AMD. So we took AMD calls at 108 at the lows today. So sorry, on Friday. And those ended up doing really well. So now we're basically just holding on to AMD for a bounce upwards. And those were already profitable. I think it ended up hitting 15% on July calls. So it was very, very safe contracts. And they did well. So I'm expecting a little bit more upside on AMD. And we filled this gap here, all right? And if we get a bit more upside on AMD, then it could help pull the SPY up because of the NASDAQ and everything like that. But regardless, in my opinion, the setup is setting up for either a huge drastic move to the downside where they're piling on a lot of shorts, or it's going to get small bounces, small incremental bounces. If we continue falling like this from what we did on Thursday, then we're never going to get any clean retests of resistance as a moment to reshort. Because yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty fun. It's going to be very, very fun basically moving forward to see what ends up happening with the market. But definitely this is starting to look, we still have more downside room, obviously, on the SPY. The dollar is still showing the strength. There's still more room to the upside on the dollar. And if there's more room to the upside on the dollar, that means there's more room to the downside on the SPY. So just keep in mind 430, 431, 432 area. But as we get to that level, that's when you don't want to be bearish. You would rather be bearish at levels of resistance. So I hope that makes sense. And yeah, nice and short and sweet. Yeah, love you guys. Have a good Sunday. Take care. Have a good one.